Let's start with a little bit of background about who you are and how you identify.
Sure, yes. So my name is Uendra Moonsammy, and I am an Indo-Caribbean, West Indian, Guyanese American, queer SLP. Yeah, so this was great because growing up in New York City, I never really felt out of place, so to speak. But they do tie in now that I'm in a fellowship and I'm actually in an area which isn't really that diverse, and I am seeing some of that come into play. So, um, in terms of my music and in terms of my musical upbringing, I see that coming into play with my voice therapies and even with working with child language. Like that is huge because what better way to maintain engagement than with music and with
Then
sound.
with music, right.
Yeah, and also you have to know your audience when you're a performer. So that was always a great way to maintain engagement with kids. My first two patients actually, or clients, were one was Guyanese and the other one was Indian,
Oh,
and
wow.
and it was great because you know these were two clients who were receiving services from my college, Queens College, um, for a few years. And the therapist who was my supervisor was so great. She was so great with them. One of the women ended up saying, in aphasia, yes, no is huge, right? And it's where we go to first. And in Guyana, the way that we say yes isn't always yes. It's
Mm,
or no. Um,
mm.
and my supervisor one day was targeting some yes no, and the client kept saying "Minnow, minnow, minnow, minnow," and after the session, we spoke, my supervisor and I, and I said, she was actually answering those correctly. She was saying yes, and she was telling you that she knew what you were talking about. And the therapist turned to me and she said, I never would have picked up on that.
Mhm.
And this lady, she was she was globally aphasic, and then over time with therapy, she's gotten more to what we would consider maybe a Broca's aphasia with apraxia. Um, so, that I think was an eye-opening experience for me as a therapist because as a budding therapist, so to speak,
Mhm,
at that
mhm.
time. And there's so many people who are in need of our services who probably won't be understood by the majority of the 92%, so
Yep,
to say.
yep.
And there was also another client who I worked with during the same time who had locked-in syndrome, and really finding ways to make language functional for her. We spoke about Indian holidays, Diwali and Navaratri, and Indian foods, and not only was it functional, but it was fun.
Mhm,
We were,
mhm, and
and
it's fun for both of you, like
yeah, yeah,
and like you said, as a budding therapist, like, what a great way for you to see how necessary you are in this field, like, the cultural responsiveness would not have been present in either of those situations if it wasn't for you being there, and you see what difference it makes for those clients and those patients, so I think that's awesome.
you know, I, I was kind of, I kind of experienced racism from people of color, and
Mhm,
I was
mhm.
brown, and
No, please talk about this because this
yeah,
happens a lot. I
yeah,
wanna hear
yeah.
all about it, please.
Someone, I was literally just like reaching for a hole puncher, and we were doing paper charts at this skilled nursing facility, and the the person at the front desk, the nursing manager, told me, I don't care where you came from, I don't care what kind of education you had, I don't care what you're here doing, you have to hole punch the right way. And because I guess I was a little off with my hole punching. And and I'm here just like, well, there first off, there are bigger things at hand right now. I'm trying to
Right.
provide services to someone who literally cannot speak or move, and he's very uncomfortable right now, and you're going to talk to me about hole punching. And I'm also just like, why would you bring up where I come from? Why is that an issue here?
How is it relevant?
Yeah, how is it relevant? We're here to provide services. We're here to take care of these patients. I'm not here for your comfort. I'm not here for my comfort. And that I think really struck me. 'cause it was the first time I experienced racism on the job, but
Mhm.
also from someone else of color. We're supposed to be
Mhm.
here together, like, we're healthcare professionals.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought this up. I was actually just talking about this the other day, and one thing that I think that Black people often fall into is that we feel like we have the monopoly on oppression. Like we're the only people that have it hard, and it's not the case. And obviously, we have it extremely hard. Like I'm not mad at the people that feel that way because I get it, but it's just like it's not just us. Like other people have had some very extreme difficulties that really don't get talked about either. Like I understand, we fight for ourselves, but we have to fight for other people too. And a lot of times Black people are very good at that. But what we also have to remember is that we grow up in the same society as white people. Like we have the same influences on, who should be at the top and who is supposed to be in certain positions and the way that we're supposed to act and respectability politics. And I think this just all comes into play into what you just said, like the where you come from wasn't relevant. Like it had nothing to do with what you were doing, the services you were providing. And I think we just all have the same influences and we don't talk about that enough. Like Black people are not exempt from being prejudiced. We can't be racist because, that's like systematic, but we can definitely be prejudiced. So I'm glad that you brought that up because it's a valid experience. It definitely happens.
Yeah, yeah, and as a new fellow, that kind of affected me. I
Hmm.
remember going through my day and feeling like this feels dirty. I feel like it's wrong, and I didn't file a complaint, but it happened again from the same person
Hmm.
down the line, and I told my supervisor, and she reached out to the people she needed to, and don't feel ashamed to do that because
No,
it's rough
definitely
working in that
not.
environment.
Definitely not. Always advocate for yourself, no matter who it's coming from. If it's someone that looks like you or not, definitely advocate for yourself. But okay, let's, moving on to something a little bit lighter.
Yeah, yeah. And then I remember when I wanted to join the world of speech language pathology, I was in my first year of graduate school for music, and I was leaving a rehearsal, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't grow old doing this." I can't, and and I don't want to crap all over the music world, but classical musicians are the most conservative people you'll ever meet. I'm
Hmm.
not about that life.
Hmm.
I you can probably tell I'm very informal. Um,
Right. But I can
and
only imagine being in that space and then only being the
yeah,
person of color.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
I was always accepted, which is
Hmm.
which is great. I should mention that too. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was just too catty for me, and I was just like, okay, I got to get out of here. I love 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 music. I love performing, but I can't grow old doing this. So I was driving home
Hmm.
one day, and I ended up calling my boyfriend out of the blue, and I was just like, you know what? I love singing, and the teacher I was studying with at the time was more scientific. She was Dr.
Hmm.
Sherry Overholt. She was my mentor. She still is a huge part of my life. And I appreciated her lessons because they were so much more technical. And I always taught, and I love teaching, but performing, I never had that ethic to just get out there and audition and
Hmm.
travel. And I remember calling and I was like, you know what, I don't think I can do this, but I do want to work with the voice, and I'm going to be a voice. I don't even know. Like, I think I remember saying like a voice specialist or something.
Hmm.
So I did some research. I had no idea what speech language pathology was, and did the research and found the field. And literally spoke to my mom the next day, and I was like, you know what? I don't know if I should continue this degree. And she's like, you know what, Sean, you started it, finish it.
Hmm.
And I'm happy
Hmm.
that I did because the next year, kind of my career kind of really bloomed and blossomed. So I'm so thankful for her advice. And now I could say I have a master's in music and I have, a master's in speech language pathology. So that's
That
great.
is, yeah, that's
But
pretty cool.
but yeah, I getting into SLP, I thought I was only going to work with the voice. I didn't know you had to learn about child language and swallowing and cognition. So yeah, that's how I ended up here.
So you have a lot of experience being the only person of color and being the only male, and which is not surprising, especially in the field of speech pathology. For those that don't know, only 4% of speech pathologists are male. So, do you feel like being a double minority gives you a different perspective in the field or in just the way you approach therapy or anything?
Yeah, so like there's a dichotomy, I think, especially like within our field, because there are so many, there's a wide spectrum of where you lie professionally. So in the medical field, I don't think that it makes a huge difference in terms of
Mhm.
clinical services. No, but I will say I feel like it's made me more of an advocate for women. I'm more of a feminist. For
Mm.
all types of women, doesn't matter where you lie on the spectrum, and that includes trans women. You know, you
Mhm.
can't be a feminine without saying that you're an advocate. Um, you're you have to be an advocate for all women. You know, and
Definitely.
that's something I see in the medical field because I'm there standing with my supervisors sometimes, and the residents and the MDs are literally speaking to me as a fellow, because I'm a dude and probably because I'm brown,
Mhm.
and they think that I'm the physician, or even worse, if they know I'm an SLP, they'll literally look at me and speak,
Mm.
and I always have to defer. Always have to defer back. I'm like, oh, I'm the fellow. This is my supervisor. You can ask her. So I
Mhm.
feel in that regard, it's made me more of an advocate for women in our field. But going back to the other spectrum, I think in schools, yeah, I think it makes a difference. I think there needs to be more men. There needs to be more men of color because I did work in a school and I did work privately with pediatric population with guys, and there I think there is a difference. And
Yeah.
the majority of the kids that we work with are going to be kids of color, are going to be kids
Mhm.
who might not have it as many resources as other kids, and it's good to be a role model. It's good to,
Mhm.
and get them. It's good to get them, right? Like, I know what it's like to work with, the Indian kid who has, multi-generational home, who's juggling
Right.
so many things. He also has to, he has so many pressures on him, and she has so many pressures on her. And I know what that's like. I
Mhm.
see how my sister was treated, in contrast to how I was treated. Like, I had
Oh,
much more
talk about
liberty.
it. Talk
Yeah.
about it.
Like, she's always being asked when she's going to get married. She's, as a child, like, I was able to, wear what I wanted to wear, but she necessarily wasn't able to. And, when it comes down to expression, and it makes me sigh
Yeah.
because, you know, let the girls wear what they want to freaking wear, and
Yeah.
I know I'm going off from the tangent. Let me stop. But,
All relevant though, all relevant.
it's all relevant, and I want to be there to see those kids, maybe kids who are discovering themselves to be non-binary. Like, I see you.
Mhm.
I see
Mhm.
you. That's
Definitely.
fine, and I'm here for you. I'm an ally. So I think in terms of development, yes, it 100% matters. In the medical field, not so much. I don't think.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely see that. When I like with my kids, especially like all my kids of color, my kids, that just are from marginalized communities, I just feel like so protective over them. I'm just like I just want you to know that I'm here. Like I just want to have them in a little cocoon and like walk with them through life. It's different when you know what they're going to experience. And so I don't know. I think we can see things from a different perspective. But another thing I actually was going to bring up that in the medical field, you're really not necessarily a minority. So it's really two different perspectives. Being in medicine and then being in speech pathology, it's two different things. So I think that's really interesting, which is why I honestly wanted you here because like I know you have such a different perspective. I think it's so cool.
Well, thank you. And of course, like, I'm also not black, so I don't know, like, what it's like for a black person to go through what they go through.
Mhm.
So I have to say that, like, there are different gradients.
Exactly. And that's the thing, like that's what happens with intersectionality. Like there's so many parts of me that you will understand, that you will get, and there's so many parts of you that I will too, but then there's also very many that I won't. Right. So and that's the case. Like, and that's what I want people, that's what being culturally responsive is like understanding that every person is an individual. Everybody has their own identities that make them who they are, and some you'll get and some you won't. And it's just respecting that.
And I really think it begins with communities as well. Like, there's a lot of educating that I do to my own community as a Guyanese American
Mhm.
with toxic masculinity.
Mhm.
There's a lot of work that I'm trying to do, and I'm getting a lot of, like, not pleasant messages on my Facebook pages, from uncles and aunties, so I'm okay with it. I'm okay
Yeah.
with it. But
Yeah.
it starts there. It starts there, I think.
It does. I saw that, or I saw one of the posts that you're referring to. And another thing, like you're saying, somebody has to speak out. Like somebody has to say something for there to be a change. And it's hard. It's hard. And especially because like generations that are older than us, like, that we're taught to like respect our elders and like you don't disrespect them, you don't engage with them in that way. But like if something has to change and you have to say something, then like that's what has to be done. So I get it and I appreciate it because it's difficult. It's not an easy position to be in.
Yeah.
I want more people with these marginalized identities and more males and more people of color. I want all these people to come into the field. But obviously, like, I get why you might not want to. I understand, like the lack of diversity and all these things might be a little bit of a turnoff. So, what advice do you have for people that are, might be on the edge of this field looks interesting, but I don't know if I want to deal with all that? What would you tell them?
Find me, contact me. Let's talk. Let's talk. Because yes, it is easy to turn away from things that are hard. Go against the grain. See what happens. You might like it. You might continue doing it for the rest of your life, and you might be
Hmm.
very happy with that result. That being said, not everyone has that personality, right? So that's why talk to your resources. Can I be a resource? Can I? Because I want to,
Right.
So really, find me on Instagram, find me on Facebook. Um, I'm more than happy to talk to you about this. But yes, I think that we do need more diversity, and I'm not going to say that again because like everyone's been saying it in our field, and it needs to be said. But what are we going to do about it now?
Hmm.
What are we going to do about it? I don't want to be a gatekeeper. I'm approaching a time where um, I'm gonna have to start like doing interviews. I'm gonna have to start, letting people in. And if you want to be here, that's enough. I don't need you to go to that specialty program.
Hmm.
You are enough if you want to be here. So if you have an inkling in your head that says, I might want to do this, talk to us. We're
Yeah.
here.
Find us, find somebody. And I would tell them the same thing. And I want to add to that that the field needs you. Like, I understand that the field is what it is now, but and it doesn't look great to get into, and I understand that. But that's exactly why we need you because we're trying to change that.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is, there's power in numbers. So I hope that we can continue to diversify and you can all come find us, speak to us, etc.
If I were going back to my 7-year-old to 13-year-old self, just being told that it's okay to be different because being different is being bold. Being different is beautiful. Being different, Sean, is being you. Don't don't settle. Don't settle for what everyone else is doing. And you know, I I feel like I was being pushed in that direction, especially within my own community,
Hmm.
um, especially during 9/11. I think
Mm,
that was a hard time for a lot of brown people.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, and even now, I'm still noticing it. Like, and I have to remind myself, I'm okay being different. I'm more comfortable with it now, and I know it took me a long time to get here, but that's it. Be
Yeah.
different. It's okay to be different. We're here. We see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I wanted to go back to when you said you were talking about you were thinking about the identities that impact the way you view yourself the most. And you said, you're kind of realizing new things, being in a new setting. And I want people to know that that is okay. Like it's okay to continue realizing like new things about yourself. And that's what's gonna happen. I feel like I've had very similar experiences like growing up I grew up in Southern California and it was pretty diverse. I had a lot of Black culture around me. I had, like a Black community, Black friends. And then I went to a PWI And I didn't even realize like how much culture was instilled in me until I went to this PWI, and I like felt like I had to change so many aspects of myself to be accepted there, or just like make myself more palatable for white people. Not necessarily change, but like just make it so they're like, okay, she's, she's a cool Black girl, she gets along with us. She's going to teach us, how to dance, or she's going to show us new music, like that kind of stuff. So I feel like I had to realize a lot about myself there. And then through that 4-year experience, I became angry.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I was like, I'm not doing anything. Like everything I do in my life from now on is going to be for my people. It's going to be for me and like what I want to see change, what I want, I want to make a difference. And it has nothing to do with me changing and shaping myself so that I make other people more comfortable.
Mhm.
And so I feel like, through that experience, I changed and I learned, and, the way I saw myself and what impacted, the way I view myself was different. And I just, it changed again when I got to Howard and I went to HBCU and I was around, Black excellence 100% of the time. And, I just want people to know, like, you're going to go through phases, you're going to go through changes, you're going to realize different parts of yourself. And, everything's going to make you stronger at the end of the day.
No, 100%. Like, clap to that. Like, it, and that's the only way to become a better clinician. You have to know yourself, and you have to be able to constantly grow, because you know what, our professional is dynamic. It's growing, and there's
Hmm.
so much that we have to do to keep up with it with ourselves. So I think that's fabulous. I really do. And you bringing that up kind of reminds me of when I first went to college. I went to SUNY Purchase um, to start my operatic training, and it was a very prestigious school for opera. I think they accept 12 undergraduates in their program.
Mm.
And
Wow.
yeah, and everyone is. I think everyone was white. Yeah, everyone was white in my program. I'm pretty sure of it. And I remember getting there to the school, and it was orientation night, and I remember everyone was dancing in the quad. And this was the first time that I started. I mean, I was like breaking it down. Like I'm so used to like dancing to soca and calypso and like
Hmm.
R&B. And it was the first time I actually saw like it was the first time I saw like white people dance. And I remember just feeling so like, what is wrong with me? Why aren't I dancing like everyone else? It was a huge wake up call for me. But now
Yeah.
I don't care. Like I go to the Ritz in therapy in Manhattan, and I continue to whine. I continue to,
Hmm.
break it down the way that I usually do. And you know what? I get some attention for it, and that's okay. You know?
Right.
but but yeah, I also there's something that I wanted to mention too about um myself, and one of my identities too as a queer person, um that I am bringing into light now. Right now in Suffolk, there is really not much out there for our trans folk and our non-binary folk. So right now, I'm also so grateful for this. There's a laryngologist who was just hired along. He was actually hired alongside with me, Dr. Keith Chadwick, who is really so wonderful. He's also a singer. He's also an ally for our LGBTQ plus community. Him, Allison Aaron, who's also another SLP with me at Stony Brook, and myself are starting from the ground up, kind of a gender affirmation clinic, so to speak. And
Yay.
yeah, we're hoping to do some outreach programs for people within the community, and hopefully build something beautiful. And I think that's another part of my identity that's really finding its way into this very dynamic field of SLP.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. And one of the things I love about it, like there's obviously communication, language, eating, feeding, like these are involved in 100% of life in everything that we do and all interpersonal relationships. Like, so there's like so many sectors of our field and like ways that we can go that I feel like haven't been discovered yet. And that's one of the things that I love about this podcast is I want to hear people's stories and, give people more ideas. Like you don't just have to be in this box that people try to put us in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and even in our own field, like the voice
exactly.
world is so like exclusive, and I'm just like, could we stop? Could we stop? thinking about it that way because I don't want to be looked at that way by other people in the
Mhm.
field. Like come and talk to me. Like I'm happy to talk to you about voice. I'm happy to talk to you about what I do, and I'm happy to teach you too. Like I take some of the inpatient clinicians at Stony Brook Hospital, and I'm like, do you want to come with me to do this voice eval? Like for the inpatients, like I'll show you, and we
Mhm.
could talk through what I do because I don't want it to be a niche.
Right.
Yeah, I want
Right.
everyone to know. Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And I hope that that same mentality spreads across the field. I feel the same way. I want to teach people, I want to pull people up with me. I want us all, to continue to diversify and change the field into what it could be, not just what it is now.
Yeah, and I think what you're doing is so great. You know,
Thank you.
there's so many podcasts out there now which are really raising awareness to this, and the 8% SLPs of color, and we have the queer SLP now. Like they're out there. You guys are coming out. You're
Right.
bringing us out of the woodwork, and hats off to you all. Yeah,
Thank you. I know. I'm
seriously.
so excited. I feel like we're in like the start of a SLP movement and the
Yes.
revolution, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Yeah. No, and I'm so happy to ride this wave with you. Honestly.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah, and I think going back to calling people in versus calling people out.
Mm,
I think that's something that we need to remember. I I think it's okay to call out sometimes. Like sometimes it's just needed. But I think another way that we could really approach like making people more aware is by calling them in. And calling in with love. Sometimes if it's deserving. But one thing I'm so thankful for from my partner. I will say I never would have become an SLP if it weren't for him.
mm,
He is a white boy from Ohio. He's a pastor's son. Um, not what you would expect for uh, another gay male, but he's doing his PhD right now in cellular and molecular biology. I'm a speech
mm.
language pathologist. I still can't say that without slowing down. But he really, really helped me find a way of applying. I had no idea how to apply for graduate school. I didn't even
Mm,
know to take the GRE. Like I didn't have to do that for music. It was all audition based. Knowing how to write a personal statement, you know, none of that. So I'm so thankful for him for showing me that. And right now, I feel like it's my duty to give back to that. So the
mm,
last 2 days of my work week, I'm speaking to a girl who's Egyptian who's also in the same boat as I was, and we're going through interview questions for her graduate school admissions, and we read through her personal statement. We talked about how we can make it better and what was great.
mhm,
And I'm doing the same thing for some kids in India right now who are applying to programs in America and
mhm.
Europe. So I'd really, really say it's important for us to remember that. And it's important for us to hold on to those people. Even, not every white person's going to be bad. And that's something I have to
Mhm.
tell other Guyanese kids as well. Like, you can't look at it through that lens. You have to know your allies and recognize them. And if it weren't for my boyfriend, I never, ever would have been where I am right now.
That's very true. That's very true. I talk a lot about mentorship, and a lot of white SLPs ask me, what can I do to increase diversity in the field? And that's one of the things that you can do. Exactly what you're doing now is like find the students that need support
Yeah.
and figure out ways that you can help them. Read through their personal statements. There's so many like little things that can help and make such a big difference in their life and really change the course of their career, getting them into schools and programs and everything that they're trying to do. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and again, hope more people start riding
Yeah.
this wave.
Yes. And people, please reach out. Like, baby SLPs to be, reach out. Okay? We're here. And
Definitely.
other SLPs, I'm calling you in. Okay. I'm calling you in. Let's help. Let's help.
Definitely.
One thing I did write down, I was like, when it's okay to be different, it's okay to be different. And when we go to ASHA, I stick out like a sore
Oh my
thumb
god.
that's been like hit 2 times in the door, 1 time in the car door, and drop the freaking like Leahy's textbook on it. Like, and that's okay because the diva in me is like, hey, I stand out, but that's okay. It's okay to be different. And once you start noticing that you're a little different, it starts to feel a little liberating because
Mhm.
then you know the
Definitely.
power that you have to like really pull people in, and let them know it's okay
Yeah.
to be different.
I love that. So my first and only experience at ASHA, it was in Boston, and
I love
I yeah, you were there?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that was the only one I've been to, and it was very white.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's just like a huge space filled with white people. And I remember like when I first got there, and first of all, I showed up with like, my Howard cohort. So like 12 black women.
Yeah, awesome.
And yeah, it was just like, I don't know, like as soon as you get there, like obviously you turn heads, like you're a group of black women that just don't look like anybody else here. And so I remember like when I first got there, I mentally prepared, like, I knew what I was walking into,
Yeah,
but it was still kind of like,
jarring.
shocking, jarring, very like when you go and you see, and not only, do you see what everybody around you looks like, but you see everybody around you looking at you.
Yeah.
So that's, that was a very difficult experience at first. But then, by the end of, the conference, it was very liberating. It's just like you said, like I remember like by the end of it, I just like, first of all, I don't know. I feel like people don't know this about me, but I can dress.
Yeah,
Like, we're in
you should.
COVID and I'm in sweats 24/7, but see me outside one day and it's
Yeah.
different. But by the end of it, I know I looked good, I felt good, and I went as a CF, and I had figured, got so many like job offers already,
Wow.
and I was just like, I felt great, and I felt liberated, and I was like, you know what? Look at all these people looking at me. They don't even know I got like 5 offers in my back pocket.
Yeah, oh my
Like
gosh,
I just felt good.
how
Yeah,
affirming too, right?
exactly, exactly. And then on top of that, like I said, like I went with my cohort and we were all staying together and we had each other. So it wasn't like I felt alone. And it was like by the end a very liberating experience. And so I want people to know like, yes, it can be very, kind of scary, honestly, to walk into that kind of setting, but you will come out on the other side feeling reaffirmed in who you are. At least that was my experience. Okay, so for my last and most important question, I want to know about a food or a dish or a meal that you had growing up that you feel like everybody needs to try.
Oh, geez Louise. This is a tough one.
Isn't
So,
it?
um, well, growing up, hmm, my favorite type of food is actually Trinidadian food. So, yeah,
I
yeah.
eat it, weekly.
Oh my gosh, I love doubles. Have you ever tried doubles?
Yes.
With extra tamarind sauce?
Oh my gosh, my heart.
Yeah, yeah, and I actually one of the clients that I worked with in, my first year of graduate school, the one I was talking to you about earlier,
Mhm.
one of the, therapies that we did actually surrounded doubles. She was also from Trinidad, um, well, I think she grew up in Guyana, but she lived in Trinidad. I'm not sure, but one or the other, and one of the therapy sessions brought in some doubles from Liberty Avenue in Queens, and we spoke about doubles and how we make doubles and chana and roti and pilari,
Mm,
and those that was therapy for her, So
wow,
I
that's
think everyone should try
amazing.
it, if you get
Yes. Can you explain to them just a little bit, what they can expect, what it's gonna taste or not what it tastes like, just basic about what it is?
Yeah, so I'm not even sure like what the actual bread is called. So it's kind of like it's kind of like it's chickpeas.
Mhm.
The chickpeas is curried, and we call that curry chickpeas chana. And there's two pieces of bread that surrounds it. It's not really bread. It's like let's just call it roti. Roti is kind of like the
That's what
general.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, let's just say
That's the only one I know, but so I'm like
it's made a little differently though, because roti's a little dry.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it's a chickpeas kind of sandwich, so to speak.
Mhm.
I'm making it very westernized, but
Yeah.
and you put a little tamarind sauce over it, and it's great. It's like a very easy meal to have that
Mhm,
fills you up.
mhm.
Yeah,
Quick and delicious.
quick and delicious. But right now, if anyone were to try any kind of food, I would totally recommend shabu shabu. Have you ever tried shabu shabu?
No, I've
Or
never
hot
heard it.
pot? Yeah, so it's I went to school in Flushing, where there was a very large Asian American population, and a lot of my friends were from Japan, um, and they ended up taking me to a place called Hot Pot Shabu Shabu, and it's a type of cuisine
Mm.
where you kind of like make your own food in a boiling pot of water in front of you, kind of like the fondue place, Simply Fondue. I'm not sure if you've ever.
Oh, I don't know if that's what it's called, but I love fondue, so
Oh yeah. So Simply Fondue has something like it where you cook the food in front of you. So shabu shabu, if you guys ever have a chance to go and try it out, try it out. I would.
that sounds good.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. You have provided so many beautiful views and anecdotes and advice. I think this is going to be a great episode for everybody to listen to. Let the people know, where they can find you, anything else you want everybody to hear.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Shawnee55. That's SEANNY 55. Um, I also have LinkedIn and I also have Facebook, but I don't check them as much. So I would totally recommend just finding me on Instagram.